is that you can use pathways. You can make pathways work for you if they look at the Toastmasters projects they're doing as these things are going to help me in my life. Toastmaster rubber hits the road, where we actually have to use our skills in real life, important social situations.
Marinated in the Toastmasters Legacy Educational Program, our next presenter.
Can you speak up?
Yeah, sure. And past president, District 32 Director Kyle Hall, found the Legacy program was good, but it had some flaws. When Toastmasters International offered a new system in an attempt to fix those flaws, Kyle decided to have faith and jump in with both feet. As many of you know, our district has been working with Pathways for a year and a half now. And during that time, he's learned that the Pathways has changed, or has some really helpful features, and has a few challenges. This morning, he will tell us about one of his most recent realizations, that Pathways can serve us in advancing our life goals in very interesting ways. Telling us about making Pathways work for you, please help me welcome Kyle Hall.
So I jumped into Pathways and I chose Visionary Communicator. By the way, if you're wondering what I'm looking at, this is a page that District 4 created. All I did was search for D4. Right. All of you have this handout. This is what we're going to work with this morning. And on the back of it are a couple of links. One of the links is to this handout, and another link is to this page. And the point I wanted to make is I started working through my Visionary Communicator path, level 1 and level 2. And the exercises I was seeing reminded me a lot of the manuals that I had worked with. The manuals had what I called speech exercises. You read the material, you come up with a speech, you deliver the speech, you're done. That's what most of the manuals in the legacy system were like, and that's what levels 1 and 2 were mostly like. But then I hit level 3. And I hit level 3 as I was coming into my district director year, and the required project is develop a communication plan. Now, I'm not going to share this project in detail, but the project is come up with a communication plan to communicate a change or to communicate about an issue. And there's a lot of material that's worth reading and thinking about in there. And you're supposed to execute the plan, and the only time you deliver the speech is when the plan has been executed and done, and you go back to your club and you talk about what you learned. That's a big project. It took me weeks of pondering just to decide what I was going to communicate about. Then I had to write the plan. Now, you may not ponder it for weeks, but I pondered it for weeks. And then you had to write the plan, execute the plan, look at the results of the plan before I gave the speech. That's a big project. And when you start hitting levels 3, 4, and 5 in Pathways, the projects get bigger and more complex. It's more challenging. There's more opportunity.
And more fun.
And more fun. So the premise of this session is that you can use Pathways. You can make Pathways work for you. If you give it some thought, you can use Pathways to help you achieve your life goals, whatever those life goals might be. But it takes forethought. It's not going to be like the legacy system where, well, I'll just get the storytelling manual and work through it. I'm going to be hitting level 4 where I'm going to have some serious decisions to make. Let's think about life goals. Now, Dan has volunteered to be my co-chief victim. I'm going to do a live brainstorming with you, with Dan today. And Dan, you're working through the engaging humor path, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Now you'll notice there are 11 tabs, one for each path. And I'm using this rather than going into the TI website and going into Dan's Basecamp, because this is faster than the TI website. And I can flip from tab to tab much faster. And it also gives me the same information. So level 1, across level 1 is the same across all paths. Have you, what level have you completed for engaging humor?
I just finished my icebreaker and the first part of my evaluation and feedback, the first speech.
The first speech?
Yes.
Okay, okay. So, we're gonna ignore these two, icebreaker and evaluation and feedback, because Dan's already started those. So let's start with research and presenting. Now, Dan, what is your goal?
To be able, when called upon in different things in life, to get up there and do a speech with confidence. I've been in different situations where I had to give a speech. One time I was at Southwest Airlines working on a problem and found myself in front of a big board table that held 30 people on each side discussing a problem with the unit. And I got through it, but it's like, I want to different things of that magnitude. I want to be ready and perform.
Okay, so to have confidence in front of a group, and I assume because you're doing engaging humor, to have confidence using humor in front of a group.
Yes.
Okay, so now that is, I'm going to say that's a little bit more amorphous as a life goal, but it's still a life goal. I did this a few months ago with a lady who, I want to become a paralegal. She wanted to move from what she was doing to being a paralegal. And we came up with some very interesting, very specific things you can do. Well, let's work with your goal. So research and presenting. If you're going to have to research something, this is a lot like speech number 7 from the Confident Communicator Manual. If you're going to have to research and present on something, what would be a useful thing to research and present on to help increase your confidence in presentations and humor?
Knowing your audience, things like that.
How to know your audience. How to know your audience. So you could research how to know your audience and present on that to the club. Any other ideas?
Different types of comedy.
Different types of comedy, different styles of humor. That would be something else you could do. And there's a speech in level 2 that might apply to. So different types of humor might be a good research project for here. Okay. Now let's look at level 2. The first project here is know your sense of humor. This is all about knowing what makes you laugh and putting together a speech based on that. So that would fit into, if you've already done some research about different styles of humor, that would feed right into that really well. Connecting with your audience. The purpose of this project is to practice the skills needed to connect with an unfamiliar audience. And I can tell you my theories about how you connect with an audience, but of course, if you look at this exercise, it's going to, the material built into it is going to talk to you about how do you connect with an audience. And you put something together for that. A interesting challenge would be, how do you connect with a angry audience? An audience that may not want you there. How do you deliver humor? How do you win an audience over with humor for a angry audience? Just this may not require any additional thought to it, but it might. An introduction to Toastmasters mentoring. Here you're supposed to talk about either your experience being a mentor or your experience being mentored by somebody. So if you're trying to increase your comfort in front of a group and your humor skills, do you have a humor mentor? Do you have anybody in your life who made you laugh that you could talk about and how they made you laugh and why they made you laugh? Or the other way around, how you make somebody else laugh? So what I'm saying is you can take those projects, which are fairly defined in scope, and you can still give them a twist that fits your life goal. Now, where you really get some flexibility is when you start hitting level 3. So engage your audience with humor. The purpose of this project is to determine your style of humor and to apply it to a speech that centers around a central message. Now, I'm working the engaging humor as well as the visionary communicator. And thus far, I have not seen a lot of instruction from Toastmasters on how to be funny. which is probably wise, because Toastmasters can teach us a lot of things, but I don't think they're great at teaching us how to be funny. Toastmasters as an organization isn't known for its sense of humor. Matter of fact, most organizations aren't known for this sense of humor. People are. So we, as people practicing this engaging humor path, we may have to go out and find some outside sources. Like Judy Carter's The Comedy Bible. She's just come out with version 2 of that. She released it, I think, this month. There's great comprehensive material on writing humor. There's a lot of other material out there on how to be funny. The real issue here is you're going to have to practice this. You're not going to stand up and talk about, gee, this is how you engage an audience with a sense of humor. You're going to have to build a speech around a central message and put humor in it. Well, what would be a central message that might be important to you? What would be a central message? And that may vary upon what's going on in your life. For instance, do you have kids?
Yes.
Any of them adults?
Yes.
Okay. Suppose one of your kids is getting married. Ooh, it's wedding toast time. Talk about building a humorous speech around a central message. I gave my mother's eulogy. It was funny. It wasn't hilarious, but but there was humor in it, and humor was part of the central message because my mother had a pretty good, just slightly dark sense of humor. So you can build a central message around this. Now, I'm not going to try to pick this today because this is something that that may vary with time. You may have something coming up at work. Oh, I have to give this talk at work. How can I build humor into it so I can connect with my audience? Well, I'd like you to think about that. And if you, at home, are working on this, and you're thinking about it, you can write notes about it here. Oh, so I'm working on level 1, but when I get here, my requirement is engage with the audience. This is what I'm thinking of doing now. And one of the advantages of doing that is you can start planning in advance. And you can have one speech, one exercise, feed another exercise, feed another exercise. Like you research styles of humor, which feeds into your talk on style of humor, which helps you choose what style of humor you're going to use when you're doing engage with the audience. Now the other thing, this is the requirement, the engage with humor. These are electives. The electives tend to be a little bit smaller than the requirements. The required project tends to be the big one. The electives tend to be a little bit small. Like connect with storytelling. That's a single project. That's a little bit more like a speech project. Come up with a good story, practice telling it, go in and connect with your audience with storytelling. Creating effective visual aids. Now, how many of you have ever practiced using visual aids for humor? I see 3 or 4 hands. Most visual aids are humor killers. Most visual aids put the audience to sleep. I saw a speaker back in November. The only time he uses visual aids is when it makes the audience laugh. That's the only time. And he was brilliant at he'd be talking about something and then this happened, click, and you get this photo of something ridiculous. So this could be a really interesting experience for somebody engaging in humor. Mike.
Is there any reason you couldn't take these smaller projects and make them feed your bigger projects as would be part? You don't have to do them in sequence.
No, you don't. You don't. So the question is, do you have to do the projects in sequence? No, you don't. And if you were, let's say you were working on effective visual aids, maybe that might feed up into this project. Sure. You could do this, take the visual aids you developed that were humorous and include it up here. So yeah, the projects could very definitely feed each other. Let's scroll down a little bit. Let's see if anything really interesting pops up here. Deliver social speeches. The purpose of this project is delivering speeches in front of your club members. Well,
Can I speak to that one? I just finished.
please, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, how I work that into, I'm president of my club, Tacoma, and I give awards when people finish with their pathways. And one of the choices they give you on a social speech is giving an award.
Right.
So I've completed both of my chances to do social speeches, 3 to 4 minutes, and they were both awards for different people who'd accomplished things in my club.
Okay. Now, I would think, I haven't read this, so I don't know if it's in there, but I would think doing a wedding toast
It is.
would be a
Eulogy's in there also.
eulogy. So all of those things where, in a sense, the Toastmaster rubber hits the road, where we actually have to use our skills in real life, important social situations, there's an opportunity to practice. When I look at this, vocal variety fits into humor perfectly. Descriptive language fits into humor perfectly. Presentation software, maybe not so much. Making connections through networking. If I wanted to become a really confident presenter and confident in my humor, that might not be the project I would choose. On the other hand, if I'm trying to get a job, the paralegal I was talking, the person who wants to become a paralegal, we talked about what if you made connections through networking in the paralegal, in the legal community. Ooh, made a lot of sense. I want to move on to level 4. There's some interesting opportunities here. The engaging with your audience is the biggest one. When you get to level 4, okay, the power of humor of an impromptu speech. Now, the purpose of this project is for you to develop your method of giving impromptu speeches and practice adapting rehearsed stories during a presentation. Now, if you notice, a lot of the people who do improv, humorous improv, especially on TV, not everything they're doing is improv. I mean, it's not planned, it's not scripted, but they practice elements of some of the things they're doing. If you watch old, who's the guy I'm thinking of? The comedian and actor who committed Robin Williams. If you watch Robin Williams in concert, he's busy interacting with the audience. It all looks like it's completely spontaneous. And some big guy in a loud shirt gets up and goes to the bathroom, and he makes fun of the guy while he's doing it. Well, you know, in a concert of 2,000 people, there's going to be a big guy with a loud shirt. It's going to happen. So you can make that stuff up in advance. Somebody else comes in late. You can make that stuff up in advance and plan it. No, I'm not downplaying his enormous talent. I'm saying there was prep work involved. Well, you know, that's what a lot of this is about. Can you prepare pieces and have them ready for giving this? And I haven't read the detailed instructions here, but the 2 to 3 minute speech, so you might be preparing pieces that you use in table topics. Building a social media presence. Interesting project if you're trying to build a reputation as a humorist out in the world. So if you may be, maybe that's the direction you want to go. I know people who want to become comics or humorists. That might be something you do. Same thing with creating podcasts. If you're going to do this project, you have to create. You're not just doing a single recording of the podcast. You're creating multiple recordings. You're doing like 6 or 8 or 12 episodes of the podcast, depending on how much you want to do. What if you did a podcast on humor or building humor into your presentations? Now, you may say, well, I'm not an expert in that. No, you can interview the experts in that. You can, and that becomes your podcast, is interviewing people who know how to do this. I'm looking at managing online meetings. That's not, I don't think I've seen too many online meetings that were, really hysterical. Managing projects successfully. This is a small project management project. What I mean by that is you could do something as simple as, I'm going to be the Toastmaster of this particular meeting, and we're going to focus on this meeting being funny, and that would fulfill the goals of this requirement. Does that make sense, Dan? Writing a compelling blog, it would be a similar thing to podcast. Writing a blog on humor, giving a presentation. You pick the ones that make sense to you for achieving your goal. And by the way, if you're thinking about this and you're going, yeah, but I don't have a life goal, so this doesn't matter to me, are you mentoring somebody in your club? Are you mentoring somebody who's a new member of your club? Because this is the same discussion you should probably be having with them about how to plan out their future path exercises so that they get to whatever goal they have in mind. Sure, go ahead.
So it says electives choose one. Could you choose two or?
Yeah. So the electives, right, choose one. You're not limited to one. You only get credit for one. You can go into your path and you know, if I logged into Basecamp, I could look up high performance leadership and I could look up volunteering in an organization and I could do, yeah, you can do more than one. In my level 2, I did 6 different projects. Just because I lost track and did some extra projects. I was like, oh well. I don't get credit for it, but I did it. Level 5. So you're delivering your message with a sense of humor. That fits, I think, really clearly into where Dan is going, of developing confidence and humor. Everybody gets and then everybody gets to reflect on their path. Let's skip that. The interesting choices are down here. Some of these are big projects. Leading in a volunteer organization, that's like a 6-month, you have to go out and be an officer in some other organization and then come back and talk about it. That's a big project. Does everybody here know what a high performance leadership is? Raise your hand if you don't know what a high performance leadership is. Okay, a few people. High performance leadership is a major project and you are managing it. If you want to know how big, what I mean by major, you have to build a team. You cannot do the work yourself. If you do all the work yourself, you have not done a high performance leadership, and in my opinion, you won't get credit for it. I say my opinion because it's up to your guidance committee. But you have to have a guidance committee, and you have to build a team. And the team has to go out and do some of the work. So this is a significant project. Now, I have seen people do high performance leaderships planning district conferences. I've seen people do, one of my club members, thinking about the fact that we're talking about humor, one of my club members last year took on high performance leadership. She planned the Swim Toastmasters Laugh Out Loud Humor Showcase. Her vision was to get the community and our club in a room together laughing together. That was her vision. Well, this was the most successful event my club's ever had. We got 140 people in a room. 140 people in a room.
Wow.
And we had 9 humorous presenters from all over District 32 and District 2. And it was very successful. With the auction we did on the side, the club profited like $800, and we got 3 new members just from that event. So there's a possibility for learning about humor and presenting by doing this project. You can get very creative here. And I'm stepping away from humor here. I was talking with a friend of mine who was like, well, I have to do a high performance leadership and I have no Toastmaster goals. I said, so don't do it Toastmasters. It doesn't have to be a Toastmasters project. And she said, what? I said, what big project are you looking at in your life? She said, well, I'm busy planning my 50th wedding anniversary. And I said, and I said, are you building a team? Yeah, I've got all my kids involved. I said, do you have a guidance committee? But you could get a guidance committee. So you could turn your 50th wedding anniversary into an HBL. You're going to plan a rubbish sale at church. You could do that as an HBL. Whatever it is, it doesn't have to be Toastmaster related. But you can use these to help move you forward on your life. Now, what would make sense for Dan? Leading in an organization, you know what would make sense here? If you want to learn to be confident in front of a group and humorous, one, you'd have to join the NSA before you can be an officer in the local church. And that's professional speaking. I don't know if that's the direction you want to go. Is there a humor club? Now, I can tell you up in Division B in the Silverdale-Bremerton area, we are thinking about starting a humor-based advanced club. There's one down in Division D that meets in Puyallup right now. You could join the club and become an officer. That might fulfill this project. Whether being an officer in the group actually helps you gain in your ability to be funny, I don't know. Attendance in the club, I would hope would. Moderating a panel. How about moderating a panel of humorists on how to be humorous? You would learn from that, plus fulfill the goals of the project. Does that make sense? So I think I've made my point. I hope I've made my point. That it's worth thinking about what your life goal is and planning out how you can use your project, how you can use the projects of your upcoming path to reach your goal. And if you're mentoring somebody, it's worth having that discussion with them. Sit down with them, identify their life goal if they have one, and how can we help them get there? How can Pathways help them get there? Because if they look at the Toastmasters projects they're doing as these things are going to help me in my life, that's a whole lot different than this is something I have to do because the club wants credit for another level, or this is just part of this is just part of being a Toastmaster. If this is helping me move me forward, that is a much more powerful motivation. Questions? Sure.
I'm not familiar with this screen. Can you share with us how you got here?
Sure. So I went up to here and I searched for D4 path projects. Paths and projects, District 4. Now, the link is also on the back of the form I gave you. And this will take a second, but we'll bring us right back to the screen. And this is an excellent page. This is I use this resource all the time, both as a VPE, managing my club and helping my members manage their own paths, and as a mentor, and for myself. I use this page all the time. And if I'm doing visionary communication, so I go down here and I click on the level I'm working on. I happen to be working on level 4, and I can look at what's going on.
You create a lot of documents that are beneficial for, I've seen your evaluation, general evaluation forms. Is there a place that Toastmasters can go to get your forms rather than, like, just in general? Can they Google that? Can they have to contact you? How does someone get the forms?
Okay, so I am personally learning to take some of my forms and make them available to the public. You can't search for them on Google yet. For instance, if you're interested in my evaluation forms, I've got an evaluation folder that's now public, but I still need to give you the URL for it. You're not going to find it for searching, so you need to contact me. This form in more colorful but slightly smaller box format is available from TLI. I got rid of the color and made the boxes bigger, so I thought it was more useful. The link for this form is on the back here as well. Other questions? Take this home, try it out, see if it makes sense for you. If you're mentoring somebody, try it out with them. Have the discussion, because if you can make Pathways work for them or work for you, it's much more powerful.